President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday conferred posthumous national honors of Commander of the Order of the Niger, CON, on the late Ogoni 4, Albert Bade, Edward Kubani, Theophilus Orage, and Samuel Orage. President Tinubu bestowed the honors on the 4 leaders while receiving the report of the Ogoni Consultations Committee at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. The president urged the people of Ogoni land to embrace reconciliation and unity after decades of division. President Tinubu pledged his administration's support for peace, environmental remediation, and the economic survival in Ogoni land, while confirming plans to facilitate the resumption of oil production in the area. The president recalled that in 2022, the previous administration handed the operatorship of the Ogoni oil field to the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NPPCL, and its partners, and stressed that his government will build on that decision. Joining us on this show to discuss the federal government's re-entry into Ogoni land for oil exploration is Ledum Mitee, former president of the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, MUSOP. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. Well, very quickly, in June, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu gave national honors to the Ogoni 9, CON. Now, at that time, the families of the Ogoni 4 were saying, oh, it didn't go round because, there must be, balance in terms of the approach. Now, the president has again conferred national honors on the Ogoni 4. In June, he also gave full pardon to the Ogoni 9, all in the bid to ensure peace and reconciliation. There has been no oil exploration in Ogoni land for 31 years, despite the fact that Ogoni land, as I said, has the most prolific onshore oil field in Nigeria. Do you think that these steps that have been taken by the presidency, those steps go far enough, or there are still certain other steps that the federal government of Nigeria would take to be able to achieve the objective of the resumption of oil exploration in Ogoni land?
Well, I think that first, I think that the process, we must put it in context, it's not just about resumption of oil production. For me and for, I think, most of our people, it is about restoring the dignity of our people. We went through a process that saw a lot of tragedies that I think were avoidable. We've had the scares of daring to protest for years ago. And we must thank the president for the first time we see a president that listens, not only listening, but action, and are taking concrete steps that are already showing concrete results on the ground. So clearly, yesterday, what the delegation did, when we met the president earlier in January, he had directed that we should have consultations amongst our people and come back with the outcome of that. We went through all the nooks and crannies of our people. We harvested views from even those in the diaspora and collected a report that outlined what the Ogoni people wanted. And yesterday was the formal presentation of that report. But I can say that even while that consultation process was going on, the president had also approved some confidence-building measures. You know that clearly people have passed, there have been several false starts that people were already losing hope and thinking that trust that when government says something, it will not be done. So government approved some confidence-building measures and actually acted on them. That rekindled hope. And the report we submitted yesterday also contained more detailed views of our people. And I think that we came to the villa yesterday with a report that captured those views of our people and our aspirations. And I think we left with the conviction that our voices are being heard at the highest level and action is being taken. And I think this is something that we think we should commend the president for.
To what extent will you say that report reflects the collective will of the people? Because the National Security Advisor was saying, oh, this is a representation of, the view, the will of the Ogoni people. To what extent?
I can say that the views were collated, they went through each local government area. We went to every community, youths, women groups, and they submitted their own views. So the report captured what came out from the. I think it was far more extensive than what you see around in many places. So to a very, very large extent, I can say, yes, this captured the views of our people.
Okay, so I would really like we don't have the details of the report, but I would really like for you to share with us perhaps some of the key findings and recommendations, most importantly, as we move forward from that report that you presented to the president. And then, can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right, okay, we'll take a quick break and we'll rejoin our guest in...
To share some of the details of that report, because you talked about the details.
Yes.
Well,
so the details, and I was just about to round off my question. Dr. Bati, can you hear me?
Several things. The report...
Okay. I wanted to also... I was going to link that report, if you can hear me, Mr. Mitee.
One thing that came out clearly from production on the same terms, in the same way that it used to be. And I think both the president and the National Security Advisor also captured that what the people were asking is responsible oil production. And this not a repeat of what we have gone through. And the process is on to have detailed engagement on each of these issues. There are reports, there are demands that you can say political. You can also say there are demands that are environmental. There are demands about participation of the benefits that come out of oil production on our land. And I think that clearly each of those items represent what the people have said. We have talked about having participation in oil. What has been happening is that most of the time it used to be just the government and the oil companies sitting down and then sharing the benefits, and the people were not there. This time, I think we are asking for inclusivity in what is happening. And we are also asking that perhaps we should be also having use of what you call the resources of our land for our own development, at least some equitable proportion of that, which are the things that were captured in our Ogoni Bill of Rights.
Mr. Mitee, we'll come back to you very shortly. After this break, we'll reconnect again with Mr. Mitee in Abuja. Stay tuned. You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Apologies for that break. Well, we still have our guest with us, Ledum Mitee, former president of the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, most up with us, joining us from our studio in Abuja. Mr. Mitee, I hope you can hear me now. I believe you can hear me now.
Yes, please.
All right, excellent. So I was going to ask, my first question, the tail end of that was to link your report presented to the president with the Ogoni Bill of Rights. Were there any, was there any inspiration drawn from that? Does this now replace that? Or are there similarities or some things that were expunged from the Ogoni Bill of Rights to make this new report that you say is more holistic, involving a lot more people?
No. The Ogoni Bill of Rights are the aspirations of our people, the demands we made. And they just made demands on the fact that the Ogoni people wanted some internal political autonomy. In the report, what that captured is that the Ogoni people have an aspiration to have a state of their own, and so a demand is now expressed. The Ogoni people in the Bill of Rights had said that they wanted adequate proportion of the resources of their land for Ogoni development. And in that report, it goes on to say we are asking for some participation in the equities of the operation so that we have benefits. So what you see, in the report, we also talked about the environmental justice. I mean, both in the Bill of Rights and there in the report, we expanded that to say, look, we wanted first a responsible oil production that's sensitive to our environment, and this should be a conversation that we agree on and how the modalities to putting that in place. So what you see in the report was mainly, if you like, putting some practical steps to what was the broad demands in the Bill of Rights. It's not a question of replacement of one, but it's to breathe life into some of those things that were broad. And then there is response about, the issues of empowerment, employment, and what you call developmental issues. These are some of the issues that are there in the report.
Real quickly, I'd just like to ask you, where are we with the cleanup as we speak? How many percent done are we with the cleanup? Where are we with the cleanup? How much has been invested thus far? And did the government of Nigeria put any money in the cleanup?
Well, I am not particularly involved in the modalities, so I will not be able to put a percentage on what has happened. But one thing that clearly came out of this is that we realized that some of the things that HyPrep is doing, we looked at the nexus between oil production and remediation. And they decided that HyPrep, what they are doing, should also be made to sync with the dialogue process. So that if you are doing remediation, and there are certain activities and projects that HyPrep are doing on the ground, which also are reflected in what the demands we are saying, so that to avoid duplication, there should be a syncing of both measures, so that we know that we are not duplicating issues. So some of the outcome of that, and the president directed that the National Security Advisor and the Ministry of Environment should meet immediately in how to put HyPrep in a better stead, in a manner that reflects also this dialogue process.
Okay, Mr. Mitee, I'm interested in the political side of whatever was agreed upon. This argument that since May 27, 1967, when Rivers State was created, Ogoni people have not been given very influential positions. But I know that Senator Magnus Abe made it to the position of commissioner, secretary to state government, and then President Tinubu also appointed you into the board of NMPCL. Some people said you shouldn't have taken the appointment. And then there are people in Ogoni land calling for the creation of what they call Buri State. Now, so where are we with the politics now? Now that, you say President Tinubu has taken certain confidence-building measures, is there politics part of that? Or what exactly is the agreement in terms of politics?
Well, first and foremost, the report submitted yesterday, there had never been a question of, say, agreement as such. We are now going to the details of the negotiations, if you like. But when it comes to politics, clearly there are, like any other group of people, there are aspirations of our people that are political. One of the key things that is captured in that report is that our people had always wanted that internal autonomy, as I will call it, a state of their own. And it is there in the report are some of the things that we are saying. So the engagement we are going to have with the federal government will also center on what is federal government's support to that aspiration of our people. That has always been there. Clearly, Ruben, you understand that anytime you have, I've had sort of those things, people say, look, why are you taking the appointment? All my life, I have been in trying to agitate for justice for our people. Anytime that people have called me upon to serve, I take it as a challenge of people trying to say, look, those things you have been saying, can you do it? And I think that almost every time that I've been there, I try to leave that mark that I can look back about how I served, and I can say, yes, I did what I thought was right for my country and for my conscience.
Well, thank you very much. Talking about conscience, the case against Royal Dutch Shell, whereby there was an out-of-court settlement. I recall that the last time we had this conversation, I'm not sure if it was you here in the studio, we had asked as to how that money was shared and cases of corruption around this. How do we prevent, because this has also plagued, this has been one of the, the negative aspects from this story, whereby only a few people benefited from that, from that settlement. The real people who are suffering the effects of the environmental degradation didn't have anything come to them. How do we prevent this going forward to ensure that, just like you have an appointment with NNPC, even though it's not politicized, others might come, get a few share. How do we ensure that the people themselves are not left out of the benefits that will accrue from this, at least this path to peace and reconciliation?
Well, clearly, I know of two main cases that have been against Shell. One was over the execution of Ken and the others, which was settled, and the settlement was between those families and Shell. So it's not something that will say, okay, that there was something to be shared to everybody. There was also a community that went to court against Shell in the UK courts, and they got judgment or some settlement. And every member of that community benefited from that. As we speak, there are other two more cases that I know of that are going off also in the UK courts. Each of those claimants in those places, they receive compensation and they are shared, accordingly to every person. Going forward, what we have done in that report was clearly to show that each benefit, all the demands in that place are things that accrue to the communities, the people themselves. When you talk of the confidence building measures, they are talking of employment opportunities for youths of Ogoni. They are talking of university that our people will go. They are talking of an industrial park, which progress are being made on. So clearly, this process is working.
Okay, sir, with due respect, you didn't answer my initial question. I asked specifically about the level we are at remediation, because I think there's this rushed attempt just to go back to production in Ogoni. And if it happens, we'll go back to the same problems that made the likes of Kensarewa agitate before now. And nothing is being done for Ogoni. So where are we with the remediations? I asked, has federal government put any money into the Ogoni cleanup? I think those are important questions. Why can't we answer that question now?
Let me explain what I know as a person. I know that the IOCs were made the polluter pays principle. They are supposed to make money for the remediation. Now, how this works in practical terms is that the IOCs charge what they are paying as part of their production costs. So technically, if NNPC has 60% of the joint venture, whatever they are contributing, they charge that percentage also to NNPC. So technically, I am not one of those, and I can say what I have from an informed position, that it will not be technically correct to say they have not contributed. But I think that what I would say is that there is a misconception that the money that has been put there is what is supposed to be for the whole remediation. What the UNEP report said is that an initial 1 billion, because clearly it is something far more than what that money that was put. And it was supposed to be for the first 5 years. And the 5 years has elapsed. We are now in the 7th year. So there is need for further funding. And that is part of the conversation that I think we raised. And I think in the days ahead in the engagement, we are going to deal with that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time with us, Mr. Mitee. We're looking forward to reconciliation and, even more importantly, peace and environmental remediation for the benefit of the people of Ogoni land. Thank you for sharing with us your report as well shared with the President.